If you want to see the best that women's football has to offer, you need to be watching the US and you need to be watching Brazil. These are two dominant teams. They're so evenly matched, but there's also a lot of similarities between them, and you can see it in what they put on film. I'm Bridie O'Toole. Welcome back to Busy Watching Women's Soccer, where today I'm going to be breaking down every goal. I'm going to be breaking down the physicality, and then very importantly, we're going to look at just what exactly the US need to do to come out ahead next match. I'm going to start off by breaking down both of the Brazil goals because I think those are going to tell us a lot about the themes of the match, one of them being free kicks, which this starts with. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Something I do want you to pay attention to now is the pressing structure of the US. They're in a 4-1-4-1. We've seen them mostly in a 4-4-2 recently. Now they do allow that box entry there, but clear that up pretty quickly. But the problems really start here with this throw. This throw is in a very deep, very dangerous area. We've got 3 US players that all look like they're kind of marked up on one Brazilian player. Now that in itself is not an issue. The US are playing a zone defense. Where the issue comes in is when you have a lot of congestion, it becomes really difficult to read where those zones are and who is responsible when players move between zones or the ball moves between zones. So what we're going to see here, it's not really clear if it's Giselle Thompson's job or if it's Claire Hutton's job to press the thrower, to step into that space. And as this plays out, we're going to see Lindsay Heaps ends up taking that on, which just doesn't feel right. That allows a cross, and then Emily Fox drops her mark. So it takes a few things going wrong. It takes mistakes by several players, but part of this setup just does not look right to me. This does not look defensible from the US, and part of the reason it really upsets me is we look back to the Olympics, we look at this play by Germany that they scored on, and it's almost exactly the same thing. A quick throw to the weak side to exploit space. You cannot have this happening again next year. It has to get cleaned up. The second Brazil goal was very different. About the only thing that looked similar was it started with a free kick as well. But the sequence, I think, was a case of the US making mistake after mistake. The first one for me, there has to be pressure on the keeper here. It takes about 3 business days to pretend to want to pressure, which is too long when Brazil are getting all this time to recoup, reset their structure, because this is what they want to do. They want to play the ball in the air. They want every ball to be a 50-50 challenge, and you play right into that if you're going to let them just set up. This part of the sequence I love. This quick passing was great. Really nice way to get into a threatening area, but all the momentum got sucked out, like right here when the US stopped moving. And there's a bit of movement from Johannes. We're going to get some from Hutton. We'll get some from Giselle Thompson, but it's too slow. It's too reactive. And then it pushes the team backwards, which leads to this big mistake here. It's a bad pass, and it's a small pass. It should be simple, and it means that Lily Johannes is never in a position to defend this. So this is about half the pitch just eaten up by Brazil with no defending even possible. There's poor defending once he gets into the box. I mean, Bia Zanerato, what a player. It's a fantastic goal. I am not a defensive-minded person, but it's pretty easy to break some of this down because it's bad, right? So we have 3 principles for defending like this with the back line. Wow, you see I'm really struggling already. When we talk about pressure, cover, balance, we want one player pressuring, one covering, one balancing. What does that mean in practice? It means Tierna Davidson should be stepping up to pressure. Emily Sonnet should be covering that passing lane, and Emily Fox should be maintaining the balance of the structure, ready to cover the far post if the direction of play is going to switch. I don't think we really see any of those players do that, and I particularly hate this part of the sequence where we've got all 3 of them facing the same direction, which essentially means if Dudinha can get rid of this ball, which is going to be very, very difficult, she potentially has 3 players completely open. This to me is just a complete defensive flop. It's really, really horrible turnover location, but it's just compounded by poor defending, poor decision making. Need to see better from the US. Let's talk about the themes I saw this matchup. The first being physicality. There was a lot of contact. Now, a lot of it was very clean because this was a game played at the margins, which required a lot of clean tackling. A lot of the contact was not clean, was not necessary, it was not nice, and I do think those kind of choppy plays came from both sides. Sure, it's easier for me to clip stuff with the US struggling, but there were poor plays from both sides. Eventually, you have to make a decision. Do you want to flop when you haven't been getting calls for that? Do you want to make a hip check when you know you should be making a shoulder check? Do you want to get frustrated and throw the ball at your opponent and then laugh afterwards? No, this kind of stuff played right into Brazil's hand, right into Brazil's hand. And I will concede, yes, there were missed calls. I think especially there were missed calls on off the ball contact. But the US cannot blame losing this match on not getting enough calls because there were plenty of calls. There were plenty of calls to go around in the first half, in the second half, and in good areas. So the US won an enormous amount of free kicks, but they did not do enough with those. Now, I'm not saying I want to see the kick taker changed. I really, really enjoyed seeing Lily Johannes serve these balls in. But if you know this team is going to be physical, you know you're going to have to play to expect to get calls, figure out what to do with the ball when you have the free kick. Something we saw the US do a lot this match that we haven't seen much since the Olympics is defending their own box. There were two ways that Brazil made their box entries. The first was these long vertical plays. You got the long ball consuming the field, then breaking into the box. Of course, this is the goal. That's how they got their first goal. And they continued on with this plan of attack, but I think it got cleaned up pretty well after that first goal. I think defense looks a lot tighter, a lot more coordinated on that example there. On this one, there's a little bit of miscommunication maybe around who's supposed to step, and they allow a fairly decent shot there. They get a little bit lucky. This one I love. This is so clean. The exchange and handoff between Tierna Davidson and Avery Patterson, like that is communication right there. It looks so good. And then, of course, there was this very scary one right at the end. I'm thinking Mandy McGlynn's positioning is a little bit off here, but of course, the second she makes that fantastic save, every question and doubt I had in my mind is gone. So vertically, I think the US actually did a pretty good job. The other goal came from wide area, came from these sort of horizontal breaks in from a very deep area. And I think defending the box, the sides of the box, looked very, very different based on which wing. So this right wing we've been watching here, I think the US are doing a really nice job to defend just outside of a box, whether that's wide, whether that's just in front, really, really pushing to make their challenges outside of a box and keep play there. Emily Fox here, very good at that again. A little bit messy with Claire Hutton in there, but we can still see that right side is getting it done nice and cleanly. We go over to the left side, we've got an easy header into the box there, forces a big clear. Another throw. We do see the adjustment with Giselle Thompson coming up there, but she's beat, allows the box entry on the dribble. I do think she makes a really nice recovery here, but we're starting to see a theme. There's more box entries allowed on that left side. Nice recovery by Giselle. I love that play. Just step in front and slow things down. So I know this is not groundbreaking analysis. I think we've figured out at this point the US are a little bit weaker at the left back position than the right back position. I don't think that's entirely what it comes down to, but just throughout the night, we could see a little bit of choppiness on that left side of the defense as they're doing their defending in the box. Something I've been so curious to see this matchup was Brazil's pressing tactics, and that's because I've been watching Dudinha with the San Diego Wave every week in the NWSL. She is a complete menace, and she looked exactly the same. Brazil showed us very early on what they want their press to look like and how aggressive they want to be. 6 minutes in, we had this very scary moment, and I think McGlynn just almost like loses track of Bia there. But I loved McGlynn's recovery from this. Like mentally, she seemed so chill about the whole thing, and she just completely stuck to the script that Emma Hayes had put together for this match. I think that's going to go a long way in evaluation for her. Not the best touch there, but she's very, very calm about the recovery. And I think overall, she just looked very unfazed. I love the patience here when she knows she's about to be pressed to do things correctly, take the proper steps, look properly. Timing there is excellent when she hasn't got a lot of it. Just really liked what we saw from her. I want to take a look at some of the distribution by the keeper because it's going to tell us a lot about how the US want to play. So take a look at Emily Fox and the distance between her and her marker. And as McGlynn moves up the pitch, we're going to see that distance actually lessen. So now Fox is even closer to her marker. Davidson and Sonnet also not much space. So what do we know from this? These players do not want to receive the ball. This is telling us the U.S. really want to break that second line of pressure on McGlynn's distribution. That was the plan coming into the game, and I'm fairly confident of it because we saw the goal get given up from exactly that kind of area where the U.S. do not want to be playing. And McGlynn went for this distribution constantly, and I think she's a very good instruction follower. So the plan is to do up, back, and out. McGlynn is going to play this ball up to Horan, who's going to control it back to a midfielder or a defender who are going to rush to support. They're going to move upwards, and then that player is going to break out. The problem is, if that doesn't work, there's not that many players left behind the ball in support, which is why Giselle Thompson is just desperately holding on to the ball there. So it's up, back, and out. I think McGlynn did a really, really good job finding her passes, identifying the players that should be open. I am not sure those players did such a good job at sending the pass back and moving the ball up. It's a really, really difficult sequence and combination, and of course this distribution plays in quite well to Brazil's hands. They want the ball up in the air, they want to be challenging, but at the end of the day, the U.S. can do it, right? Sometimes it takes more than one touch to get the ball down and under control, but when it worked, you could see the U.S. get into some pretty threatening areas very quickly, and that's why they do this. Finally, let's finish with the U.S. goal or lack of goals. Now, I think the issue here for me is we saw a lot of players looking isolated and lonely and not like they were in intentional one-on-ones, but maybe just kind of forgotten about. We're going to see this giant area of space here where nobody's supporting Sophia Smith. It takes way too long for anybody to get in there, and I'm not even sure if it's Johannes's job. Same thing here for Rodman. She's just quite far from any possible connections, which forces her into not the best cross ever. And to some extent, right, this is the game plan. We should not be surprised by this. The U.S. has very fast players. They love to play like this. But when you're getting a one-on-one with the keeper, you have to finish. If that's the style of play, you want these long breaking runs to one player to just finish quickly off of, the execution has to be flawless. And the problem for me was it's just communication. People look like they weren't sure where they were supposed to be, what they were supposed to be doing, roles and responsibilities, and it just has to get cleaned up. I think a lot of the plays that looked really good, when you scratch under the hood, it's one player doing something in isolation. So right here, it's Claire Hutton that's going to win the loose ball. It's Claire Hutton that drives up the pitch. It's Claire Hutton that takes the shot. It's just one player. And the goal sequence is very similar. We've got bouncing ball, 50-50 ball constantly, both teams trying to control it. Nobody really does. And it's Sophia Smith picks up a loose ball, drives up the pitch, and shoots. It's just one player. That's it. And it's really hard for me to be critical of this play because it's a fantastic play. It's one of the most insane shots I've seen. But this is hero ball, and we cannot go into the World Cup expecting to play hero ball. I mean, look at that curve on that. It's just dastardly. So this team has to play as a team. They'll win as a team. They got to communicate as a team. They got to execute as a team. I'm really curious to see if they can do that on Tuesday. I will see you after the next matchup, hopefully with a win.